Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Yeah. I am so delighted to be here, and thank you so much, Sean and FM Supreme for starting us off. We are so excited at the Open Society Foundations and with our partners to be working and supporting this campaign for Black male achievement. Let's just give it up for Sean Dove, too, amazing leader of the campaign. I know many of you out there may have known Sean from his earlier incarnations, and I know that many of you also are our close partners in the campaign for Black male achievement, and we believe that this is an absolutely critical issue for our time. We believe that the situation facing Black men in this country is just indicative of the challenges that everybody in this democracy faces, and if we don't pay attention to it, we're all suffering now and we'll be suffering more. And so we're just really devoted to this issue. From the very beginning, as Sean said, we actually prioritize media and culture strategies as essential for changing. And tonight's discussion is the launch of a national conversation that we're going to be having for the next couple of days called Black Male Reimagined. That's all about how we can shift perceptions and associations of Black men and boys in American society. I am very honored, and I know you're all not looking at me, and you shouldn't be looking at me, to be up here on this stage with these amazing cultural leaders. I'm really kind of starstruck by all of you. You are some of the leading cultural influencers of our time, and I'm really excited to introduce all of you and to engage in a dialogue, first just up here on the stage, and then out there in the audience with some Q&A, and also want to say that this is being broadcast over the internet, so we have some other folks out there listening in on 4 TV. So I'm going to just quickly introduce, most of these people need no introduction, and so I want to just quickly introduce everybody that's up here with me briefly, and then we're going to jump right into the conversation. So first, to my far left, just such a privilege to be welcoming Jordan Coleman to the stage. This young man is 15 years old, and he has already made a successful documentary and been a successful actor and filmmaker. He's working on another one, the film that I heard about, Say It Loud, if I got that right? Yes. Say It Loud. It's about encouraging kids to stay in school and get their education, and we're so excited to have Jordan with us. Next to, absolutely. Next to Jordan is Alexis McGill, who, as Sean mentioned, has been the mastermind behind this whole event. It's so exciting to have Alexis up here on the stage, and she's another passionate advocate of the role of art and culture and social change, and she has worked with both Sean Combs and with Russell Simmons to get the hip-hop community involved in a whole range of activist causes, and we're just so excited to have Alexis here. Thank you. And then to my immediate left is John O'Neill, who is really the pioneer, the elder up here on the stage in marrying art and politics. He was the co-founder of the Free Southern Theater movement, which was the cultural arm of the civil rights movement, and still runs Junebug Productions down in New Orleans. We are just so delighted to have you here with us, John, to kind of round out the And then to my right, Lupe Fiasco, a very successful rap artist. It's so great to have Lupe here, and we are just so excited that you're with us, and know that you have been very involved in a number of different social justice causes, including in your home community of Chicago, and we're just delighted to have you here with us. So, welcome, Lupe. Russell Simmons needs no introduction, I don't think. One of the top 25 most influential people of the past 25 years, a title shared with Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey. We just couldn't thank you enough for being with us, Russell, and I know you're just at the forefront of these efforts. So. And then finally, Nick Cannon, another top 10 most successful people in Hollywood. Really eager to hear your thoughts on this conversation. So we're going to jump right in. I want to just say these are phenomenal cultural leaders we have up here, and all of them have in fact been engaged in a wide range of cultural forms, from theater to music and hip hop, to television. And I want to just acknowledge the leadership also out there in the audience. I know that there are many amazing community leaders and cultural activists and organizers of all kinds, and I just welcome you to this conversation, and we're going to bring you into it as soon as we can. I think we all know, but it's important to, I think, recall that history shows that when culture shifts first, then politics shifts, and not the other way around. And we've seen that with kind of every social movement, every important social issue of our time. Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in baseball years before the Supreme Court, that other court that I've been in front of, ruled in Brown versus Board of Education. They tend to be a little bit slow on the uptake, and so you got to see the cultural shift first before you see the real shift in the law and the policies. And obviously, you see it up here on the stage. Black entrepreneurs took ownership of the hugely successful hip-hop movement years before Barack Obama was elected president of the United States. Again, showing, that culture precedes, I think, politics and justice. And of course, on a range of other issues, not just those affecting black men and boys, you see this. Certainly in television, you saw the mainstreaming of gay culture way before the kind of marriage equality, movement took root. And so we want to kind of explore this dynamic, and we want to focus on two different themes here tonight that are kind of closely related. The first one is, what is the role that art and culture can play in advancing social change and social justice in our communities? And secondly, how can we harness the power of art and culture to shift what have become a predominantly negative perceptions and images of black men and boys in the media? And I'm really excited about exploring that with our folks up here tonight. But I also want to say that, all of us have been in a lot of these conversations. There's a lot of talk about what's wrong. There's a lot of talk about what the problems are. And I want to kind of focus at the very beginning on what are the solutions. I think we have the power up here on the stage and out there with all of you to actually fix this problem and really come to some conclusions about what is needed. And I want to start us off. I'm a personal believer that the young people and the elders of any society have all the answers to that society's problems. And because I believe that, because they represent the wisdom of our past and the energy of our future, I want to start off actually with John, and I want to start off with Jordan. And John, you pioneered the marriage of art and politics and justice in your work that's been going on for almost 5 decades. And it engaged and empowered black communities to improve the quality of life for themselves and for all people who are oppressed and exploited. What could today's cultural leaders learn from the model that you helped to create? And what's different about the role that culture is playing today in changing our communities?
Am I here? Yeah.
I think it's on. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know.
I don't believe you.
No, really, I don't. My mentor as a writer is a guy named, Mike is not on. Oh,
We'll take care of it.
okay, yeah. Oh, when I turned it on, I heard feedback, so I just turned it off. My mentor as a writer is a guy named James Theodore Ward, Ted Ward. Mm-hmm. He wrote what, for my money, is the single best play that has been written in the English language in the 20th century, bar none. Ted is from Thibodaux, Louisiana. He wrote about 40 plays, but he told me once when he's dead now. The play that I was talking about is called Our Land. If you get a chance to read it or see it produced, it doesn't get produced a whole lot, but I'm convinced that it will be with us for at least another 200 years. The main problem is not produced very much now is because it requires at least 45 people to do it. And it's a historical drama. It's about what happened to that 40 acres and that mule. It got a short run, 3 weeks on Broadway in 1947. It's a powerful piece of work. What Ted told me was that I sort of lived with as my own personal mantra. He said that the power of art comes from the fact that art is insidious. It has its impact on us, not through the head, but through the gut. That we find ourselves carried away with the ideas and the images and so forth before we know what has happened to us. And that has to do not only with the things that are good that we put into our art, but it also has to do with the things that are bad. You know, so I think that that's an insight that I'm still struggling to come to grips with, and Ted told me about this in 1966. So my personal belief is that art, you've heard it said that art reflects life. I agree with that. We have experiences, we learn things, learn how to represent those things in our work, and then hold it up for people to consider whether or not what we have shown about what we learned is something that is useful to them as they try to do the work of living the life. So I'm not one who thinks of artists as leaders. I think that the discipline of political struggle and social change requires the same kind of passion, the same kind of study, the same kind of intense effort among the people who organize and offer themselves to play roles of political leadership that is just as exacting, if not indeed more exacting, than anything that we as artists have to do.
Wonderful. Thank you, John. Jordan, I'm eager to hear how that resonates with your own experience. You are already an inspiration at the ripe old age of 15. You're already making a difference through your art and your activism. What more do you think needs to be done to harness the energy and the creativity of young people like yourself to advance social change? And are there some examples from your own work, your own experience that you would like to share with us?
Well, I think the key to getting to the youth is media. I think everybody who doesn't watch TV, who doesn't listen to music, who doesn't go on Facebook, who doesn't go on the internet, I think the key to getting to youth is definitely media, because they get bored sometimes. I mean, I think the media is the key to open up the doors between the real world and the youth. And I feel like Lupe and Russell and Nick Cannon, they all have the key to get to the youth. That's why the youth clap so loud for them, and that's why they understand where they're coming from, and that's why I feel like media is the key. And that's why I want to make films, because my films are to educate, enlighten, and entertain all at the same time. And that's why I feel like people love my films so much, and that's why I want to continue to make films. That's it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wonderful stuff.
Whenever there's discussion about what artists can do, and I'm one for working on social change and getting artists to promote those ideas and to spread throughout the media and other places through creative resources and obvious sources. These ideas to inspire. But as he said, the artists are a reflection. And the infrastructure in our community, the struggles that are ongoing in our community, require real effort on the part of the activists, the politicians, the people who, everything, it's in cities. He said it struck a nerve, and I wanted to say, the artists, I worked at TV, and they play, not only in black culture, in every culture, the lowest, cheapest seats, because it's easier. You have to be very creative to write something inspiring and uplifting. It's more inspiring, it's more uplifting, and it lasts longer, and it sells more. But Jesus Walks requires someone to take the initiative and to do something different, and it's not, although there's a tremendous white space for more inspiring art, it also requires a very special individual who's willing to go against the trend and also is more creative than the rest. So the art, you always want to use it. But if you can have one foot in the spiritual world and one foot in this pop world, but the foot got to be firmly in that pop world if you want to inspire young people. If you want to attract people to an idea, and if it's not one that's in the norm, then you got to be very creative and skillful. And that goes against, a lot of times, that can go against the gut of an artist. So to always look to art as one of the causes of the struggle in our communities. We can look to individuals who are artists as leaders and promoters of good causes. But the struggles in our community need to be dealt with the infrastructure. And there's so much attention, whether it's language, whether it's, it's culture is a reflection. And I think that we've more hung up on semantics and hung up on the reflection than we are on the real symptoms and the causes of those symptoms. So that's my opinion, not in defense of art or each individual artist, but the artists do, even if they seem or sound, or their language seems or sounds abrasive. I mean, these terrible hip-hop artists are less sexist than their parents. They're less homophobic than their parents. They're less violent than our government. That reality is expressed through their poetry, it's just, we can't look to art to solve the social ills. So that's just, I'm not going to defend art the whole time I'm here. I'm just going to make that statement. I want people to sit with it. Because it's easy to point the finger at the artist when all around us the suffering continues. And so that's just a statement that he made that I want to reaffirm and say again, so I hope people consider it.
And let me pick up on that theme, Russell, and ask you another question, which is, there really are two different ways, right, that artists can be kind of active, right? One is through the content of their work, and that's where a lot of the energy and attention is what you're saying. But it's also, of course, through your own activism, which you're really like an icon of that, like using your own, place to kind of get involved, get active on a range of different causes. But those two things don't always work so well together. What have you seen as like the best models of artists and culture bearers working directly with organizers and activists?
I think that there's management issues when it comes to creativity to get an artist to bring out the truth. But inside there is a really good spirit in each artist, and then they look inside, the more they look in, the more they find that only good spirit. But the management, I'm on a TV network. I begin with a prayer, I find a piece of yoga in the middle, and I end with a prayer. In between the nastiest, lowest, dirtiest tricks by the network all day. That's what they do. That's what their experience is, and that's where their success is. It takes, a lot of courage on an artist's point. It takes a lot of resistance to the norm, or we thirst for dirt, not because we have to, but it's cheapest and easiest. It's cheapest and easiest. And that reaction, you turn the channel, you stop on a gangster, but you keep going in a subtle pretty story. A beautiful melody plays longer, lasts longer, is more successful, profitable, but the beautiful melody takes creativity and it takes support. So there are people in industry, television, music, other places, that don't have time nor creativity to kind of help an artist get there.
Okay. Alexis, I want to kind of pick up on this theme. You have worked as a political strategist and at the intersection of kind of culture and politics. What have you learned about trying to harness the power of big cultural influencers to kind of leverage and advance change?
Well, I think what John and Russell and Jordan are saying about the power of art and culture in terms of being a reflection and a pulse of society is absolutely right. But when I think of culture as a strategy for social change, not just preceding social change, I think of it as a different experience. I think of it as the way that we all absorb our information. We're all in a cultural space together, primarily because we're seeing the same media, you know, and media is changing so quickly, so it's all happening in real time. We're experiencing the Twitter where, you know, immediately after we've watched something on TV. And so I feel like that culture is a glue that keeps us in the same conversation together. And so I think we have to think of that, and artists individually contribute to that space over time. But if we think of culture kind of as the cloud, you know, now that everybody talks about, I think that's an important framing for me, because then the challenge is, how do you create this sense of urgency in that cloud? How do you create the sense of relevance in that cloud? You know, when we were putting together this convening, you know, the numbers that, the statistics that were coming out that I was just learning about, which many of you already know, that 1 in 3 young black boys born today, will face incarceration at some point in their lives. 1 in 3 born today. And the notion that that is not rising up into a sense of urgency and a sense of relevance in our culture means that we need to identify the ways where we can, you know, we can connect our national influencers, like people who are on this panel, along with the local advocates who are here in this room, who are doing the work every day, and make sure that the messages are fluid and that the information is shared. Because if culture is where we're having the conversation, we need to make sure that the right information is there in order to change it.
Great. So Nick, you've obviously been involved in many different forms of media yourself. I'd love for you to jump into this conversation. And one of the things that's been so beautiful about your work is kind of the role of comedy, right? And I gotta say myself, you know, like you can get some of this kind of culture of protest stuff can get a little heavy. Right. Sometimes what we all need is a little bit of comic relief. So just maybe also talk about the role of humor in comedy in this kind of work.
Well, as we all know, humor comes from tragedy and truth. And you put that together with timing and you got comedy. And ultimately, everyone in this room is a cultural influencer. And even us having this meeting now, us talking about it, I'm inspired. We're here to inspire one another. And because, you know, we in Harlem right now, you know, this is where it comes from. This is where, you know, whether it's comedy, whether it's music, whether it's fashion, we draw from the realities, we draw from the hardships. And sometimes, you know, they say the same thing that'll make you laugh is the same thing that'll make you cry. And I believe as a culture, we've always been known to make something out of nothing.
Yeah,
you give us something, and we're gonna put some brilliance on it and turn it back at you.
Yeah. All right.
And that's what I think, you know, looking forward to tomorrow and the next day after. That's what we have to continue to do, because the people before us did that, and now it's our responsibility to do the same thing. So whether it's in comedy, it's to tell the truth. It's our duty, it's our responsibility to tell the truth. Whether it's in music, it's our duty, it's our responsibility to tell the truth. Not to sugarcoat it, not to put it in a certain light, but just to be honest, because that's when it resonates with the spirit.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Lupe, I wanted to kind of pull in the role of faith today, right? So you look at all the past social movements, right? And you had, of course, the black church is critical to the success of the civil rights movement. You had the Nation of Islam, a dominant force in the black power movement. What do you think, as a person of faith yourself, what role can faith play today in organizing for social change? Is its own cultural force?
Can you hear me?
I think so. Are you on?
Am I on?
Yeah, you are.
You have to be very careful with faith. Because faith is one of the major dividing forces in the world.
True.
It's also one of the most unifying, but unifying with division. You know? So you have to be very careful when you try and put faith and social activism together, because faith naturally separates people. It separates the good from the evil people, the sinners from the saints. You know? And we all can't be as merciful and as understanding as Jesus, and we're not. So we are hesitant to approach the prostitute. We shun the prostitute. You know, we don't approach the leper, we shun the leper. You know, we shun the outcasts of society before we even give them the opportunity to speak. You know, the nutrition that they have innate within them as human beings, and understanding that struggle. We're quick to become elitist based on our faith, because our faith says that you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, and since you're doing that, then I can't be with you. Or if you don't adhere to a tenet of my faith, no matter how basic it is, then I can't eat in the same restaurant with you, and I can't walk to the park with you, and you can't sit around my kids. You know, so you have to be very careful about when you approach someone with faith. Are they of open mind and of understanding of that? Do you have a common kind of strand? And I don't like to approach people with faith. You know, I like to approach people with, hey, do you like the Bulls? Because I think Michael Jordan is the best basketball player. As opposed to going in too heavy, you know, from the door, because faith scares a lot of people, you know. Faith and religion, just to give it the real crux of it, because everybody has faith, but it's about religion. You know, there are Muslims, Sunni Muslims, who shun the nation of Islam, right? It's like, that's not Islam. This is Islam. You know, and you know, you have Christians who shun other Christians. That's why there's 100,000 different denominations of Christianity, right? You know, so for me, I always try to identify the agents within the religion and faith, which will separate us as opposed to bring us closer together.
You want to jump in? It looks like you disagree.
Like, you know, specifically in the black community, we got the black church, and I mean that's the stable thing in the black community. A lot of people survive because of it. But then what you said about faith is true. The separation, like, because I grew up, and we had the top, we had a good heroin block, hot low block in Queens. 25th Street was a hot heroin block. There was a mosque. There was a rehab, a steak and take. And we had, I'm old, and we had that Nation of Islam. And they say, Nick, go to the army, or you can't be dopey. Go join the nation. So the elements that the elements that are on our corners are so far removed from the black church. You know, they needed something, a cultural movement that spoke the language. And we need community organizations that speak the language. Wherever there's a lot of poverty, you know, a nation grows. I travel around the country, I always stop in all the mosques and see they grow. Wherever we have this extreme poverty, we need a nation. You know, I'm a big fan of the Nation of Islam, because in our black community, when you struggle in the street, you know, all of my friends my age who've been saved from them, they were criminal, right? They couldn't have gone into church. So it's not only the nation, but it's the example that we need to be able to reach the young people who are struggling on the corners. And the violence we have, like in Chicago and in Queens, I just visited the mothers of all the deceased, and just in the last few months in my community I grew up in, it's just so violent. I mean, we do this thing, you know what it is, you're in Chicago, I mean, it's all over the country, the crisis in the black community of violence. So we need our organizations, that's why I tried to allude to, we need the activists, and especially, and we love the church, but somebody got to speak the language. We need the activists and the community organizations that speak the language funded. Where was Eric Holder? We tried to push him. We tried to build a peacekeepers movement around the country. The nation is the basis of it in all the cities around the country. And in this, that's just all we got. They want to relate to the street. They want to support the street. But we need those organizations funded. We need, we're talking about it, but that's where it comes from. Someone who can speak the language and tell them they mean something.
Absolutely.
And I think culture, when the grassroots of our culture does more, then the artists will do even more. There'll be some heroes. There'll be some heroes or cultural heroes who can stand up and say, I say so much shit. People think I'm nutty, but say stuff that you know is right. And everybody when they hear it rings a bell. I know that's right. But we have those cultural heroes, but that's not going to be the role of the artist. There'll be some artists, and there'll be leaders in these movements. But we got to get to these grassroots organizations and loan support as individuals
Absolutely.
and as institutions.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah, here. Yeah. I'm not going to get any argument. You all are kind of so humble. I think you're underestimating your own role, in this space. And of course, could not agree more that you have to have strong community leaders and community organizations, and that's where you're really going to see the leading edge of the change, right? But I would just love to hear again another example or two of where you see. I mean, again, Russell, you yourself worked on so many different issues, including made a major difference in reforming the terrible draconian Rockefeller drug laws here in New York, and you cannot underestimate. Again, the importance that the activists who've been working on this issue for years had, but also that the cultural leaders had. So just love to hear each of you, because all of you have been working, talk about what are the elements of like a perfect coming together of the skill sets of both the cultural leaders and the community at the grassroots level and at the kind of celebrity level, working in partnership with grassroots activists to change. Well, what do you all see that works, has worked well in the past? What are some examples that we could learn from?
Well, in the drug laws, every artist that you could think of came out.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton could come out, and God bless Reverend Sharpton was a good leader and supporter, and all the politicians that came out. It was Mariah Carey, and it was Wycliffe who went to jail, and it was the artist who brought 100,000 kids, and that rang the bell. It was the artist that rang the bell, and they can do it again and again. But again, it's got to be, you got to get that grassroots thing going.
Yep.
The artists, of course, they're great leaders when given the inspiration. But the inspiration has to come from the community. The truth. It ain't funny if the joke if it ain't true. It ain't funny. It can't come out of his mouth if it's not the truth.
Yeah.
So we need to, we got to keep, and for me, as an older person I'm not an artist, I try to shape, support the development of artists. I try to find from their heart that truth. I say, well, why do you say fuck the police? Let's think, we put that in the record too. Can we, why are you saying, can you just kind of explain it a little more? And they don't mind. And then people get it a little more, but still the adult, the church and people shut it. But it's true, this culture, I sent Kim Kardashian to my school in Africa. She got more Twitter followers than the president. She got 5 million Twitter followers, and the Dalai Lama got 40,000. Wow. So you got to realize the thirst that, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's just our real talk. And I think Ashton Kutcher got more. So I'm not sure, but that reality, we have to keep a foot. The artist got to keep a foot in there with Kim. Because if she don't say, because President Obama could have went to my school in Africa, he wouldn't have got no more press than when she went.
Yep.
Maybe, but it wouldn't have mattered to nobody.
Yeah.
So that reality, we got to keep off the artists. You can't drag them out of there and say, oh, now it's your turn to save the world. Because once you say the wrong thing and once you disconnect, I can only say so much shit about the 10 billion suffering farm animals before they turn my channel. And I know it's right, but I can only say it so many times.
Yeah, Nick, jump in on that, because I bet you have an opinion, right, about like what are the challenges of kind of using media that way? Yeah.
Well, no, Russell brings up a wonderful point, and this weekend, actually, on the network that I'm the chairman of, Team Nick for Nickelodeon, is the second annual Halo Awards, which stands for Helping and Leading Others. And it was a vision that I had a few years back to where I got tired of seeing all these award shows where it's just a bunch of celebrities kissing other celebrities' butts, telling them how great they were, wearing their nice outfits and all that. And it's like, how many more award shows can we see? I mean, but there's an award show for everything. And I honestly said, we need to take that celebrity spotlight and shine it on the things that really matter.
Yeah.
And it's literally, the Halo Award is a baton. So it takes someone like a Russell who can pass the baton to me, then I can take a young person in the audience and pass that baton and say, and not only are they inspired by us, but we're inspired by them. So now it's hooking Wyclef up with a young Haitian teenager named Harold, who also had family in Haiti at the same time, and say, if Wyclef can do it, all I have to do. And it's not helping, you can help and lead others in the smallest way. You can help and lead an old lady across the street. But kindness is contagious. And if we start with the small thing, it'll cause a halo effect.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we have to do. We got to use our celebrity for good. And it's like he said, if
Absolutely.
Kim Kardashian can connect with 5 million people, let's find out those small things that she can do to inspire.
All right. Luca, what's your experience doing this kind of work in Chicago? You've done a lot of great work with community organizations in your town. How does it play out at the local level, the kind of partnership between artists and activists?
To be honest, it's very superficial. Even with the immensity of the
Yeah.
it's still very superficial because it doesn't speak to the one thing. And we talked to the murderers, you know, the 15-year-old murderers, killed another 15-year-old and what have you, and was like, what's wrong? And they said, we're hopeless. There's no hope. You know, so if your crisis is, you know, death, right? If that's the crisis that we're fighting, death, to stop death from occurring, the kids say they kill because they're hopeless. They have no faith. It's not me. They have no faith. They have no aspirations for the future. They have no hope. So they feel that everybody they see who lives in the same place that they live don't have hope either. So what's the point? So, you know, it's great and it's grand. And I had a bunch of notes before I came here, and I was like, one of the elements, the oldest dude on the
I got the text
But he don't know how to turn it off.
It's cool. It's cool.
Turn it on
Do
here.
this one.
It's just,
Maybe we should just answer it. See if they need. Lupe, go ahead. You were saying you had some points
Well, it
you
was
wanted to
about
make.
one of the tactics and one of the strategies that I think for social change is discrediting the successes of the uncommon people, the massive success of the uncommon people, and crediting the minute successes of the common man.
that's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. The halo thing and everything. But it's still the overarching problem is hope. Economic, social, parental, academic, you know, all stems from this lack of hope. So we could do telethons. They probably not even in the house to watch it, right? They're not even in the house to even watch the telethon. The money is so caught up in the bureaucracy that it never even gets to them. The community center, right, is so uncool that they're not even gonna go. You only can play so many games of celebrity basketball. Come on, right? You give them one turkey. That's one turkey, right? That's one night. But they're gonna eat tomorrow.
Exactly.
Right? There's no, and this all speaks to the superficiality of it. There's no real, solid, sustainable
But what would it take to make it less superficial?
socialism.
There you go. We're gonna get radical up here. There we go. Yeah. And you know what I was gonna ask John, you know, because one of the things you see too, one of the things that complicates this, and it's a little bit in what you're saying and a little bit in what Russell's saying is
I was halfway joking.
halfway, is, you know, again, when Free Southern Theater was kind of launched or whatever, right, it's like the cultural arm of the civil rights movement. Everybody was clear about what the movement was, right? And now part of what you see too is, I mean, on the one hand, it's the success of kind of civil society and so many different causes and issues and so many different things that kind of a culture bearer and artist could be associated with. But on the other hand, I think maybe less alignment, you know, and I wonder, John, if you could comment on that and also just comment on, is this what you saw, you know, 40 years ago, the same sense of hopelessness? And what does it take to kind of be hopeful and kind of shift the dynamic?
40 years ago, things were going down. You have to go to about 50 years ago to get to the upswing.
Oh my God, that's bad.
You know, there's not a whole lot. Old folks used to say, you know, you can't count on somebody else to do something for you. Mm-hmm. You got to do for yourself. Mm-hmm. And if, I mean, and of course, children and young people, I mean, very young people, I don't mean people like you. You're an old man sitting up here in young man's clothes. But what we have to do, I think, is figure out how to inspire, somebody said, how to inspire people to do for themselves. I think things start from the bottom. If there's no foundation at the bottom, whatever you build on top of that structure that has no foundation is going to fall. Mm-hmm. So I would say there's, in order for something to get built that's going to work, you got to get study. You got to study. We all have to study to find out why does Harlem look different now than it did in 1967 when I lived here. You know, the social and economic conditions have changed. Something that made that property not valuable in the 60s and so forth, turned to make it seem valuable. Had a lot to do with racism. Had a lot to do, well, at any rate, we got to study that question. What's wrong? Why did it get like this? Why do people have no hope? Why do young people, with all the resources in the world, in some ways, have no hope? So study. We're in a school now that has a good reputation. I haven't been here, so I don't know whether it deserves its reputation or not. But you know, we can study to find out what the difference is between this school and the ones that don't work. The schools in New Orleans now are all about turning profit, and it's not going to work. And then the final thing I would say, study, organize, and teach. Those are the three pillars to making successful communities, in my opinion. Study, organize, teach.
Jordan, I want you to jump in because I think you've got some hope. You look like a hopeful young man over there. I'm counting on you. Tell us what it's going to take to kind of inspire your generation.
I go to school in New Jersey, Hackensack High School. And it's everything from the 4.0s to the baby mamas and drug dealers. And I have a friend, awesome basketball player. We play basketball and football. I love sports. And he really has no hope. And it's kind of hard, you know, to be his friend, and I'm going to all these places and I'm just trying to enforce, you know, to stay positive. He's thinking if I don't make it to college, I'm just gonna be back on these Hackensack streets. And it's just the mentality is just wrong, and my peers and my friends and the country, for my youth, it's just wrong how people could think that you're gonna survive, you're gonna make it just living on the streets. There's nothing good on the streets. The people who are on the streets 4 years ago, they're gonna be there 8 years ago, 12 years ago, 16 years ago. And I feel that if we just change this mentality of no hope, then we would have a better world or a better place or a better Hackensack.
That comes from, we talk about the infrastructures that we build around these young people and the promises that we promote to them and allow for, obviously, we ain't gonna have equal high quality education tomorrow. I mean, should be a constitutional thing. I mean, we don't have that. You gotta look at our community. Like Minister Farrakhan, I would say, is my second father. My father died. I love the Nation of Islam. And I asked him once, I said, why don't you, you know, now the world's changing some after the Million Family March. Why is it not integration? He said, well, some of our people are not ready. They'll be slaughtered. Like sheep. They're not ready to integrate. Is that kind of, that phrase? So that's a reality that the nation takes on, and they look out for the people in the communities, and the black church members look out for the people in the communities. But you got to understand, I'm a chairman. I get a lot of research on race and a lot of research on religion. And 73% of Jews marry outside of the Jewish faith. Y'all don't know that, 73%. They got organizations trying to stop that. But that's a reality. It's like shoveling against the tide. Second, third generation Latino Africans, they ain't thinking about staying. You know, there is this integration, this melting pot in America. And you know what happened with integration in the economics of the black community was a terrible destruction of the economics of the black community. Right? You know, and I know all the Syrians who own all this. They don't own them all no more. Ocean Parkway, that was my hangout. Once I started to create partnerships, I said, well, do you want to own a piece of this shit then? No, I don't want to own that. I'm not interested. You know, all of the businesses, there needs to be. You can't get no money unless you understand your consumer. I just said the Jews first because people always think of it as tight-knit communities. Yeah, Syrians are tight, but in general. So the lack of integration, this community, more than any other community in America. So if integration has taken such great advantage of us, I always thought hip-hop, I want to put in a rock club. I want to take what I got and I want to sell it to everybody. And I know that there's a white space for it because I looked at my black website and I said, no, and I instantly jumped over all the black websites because I said, they want to buy this culture. And how do we view it? How can we create it into a broader and create, and it's just a big white space for us as cultural leaders to integrate our work, to integrate our work and our economics. And so it doesn't mean, I mean, I'm one of 5 charities, they're all for the black community, but I don't think that it means that everyone has to remain, where 40 blocks one way, there's that suffering, and 40 blocks another, there's places where the apartments are cheap all over. And I believe that that's part of the next, we fought so hard to be able to and it's not a popular thing to say, but that's just a reality. Integration has happened to us. And for the individual who wants it to happen for them, then they got to go to work. And they can't be, and so I was bust. And, I was bust, and as part of an American plan, the bust to integrate America, they gave up on that. And they left us to sometimes to suffer in a community that's been shit on, treated poorly, told it wasn't nothing. They've left, so the idea of spreading your wings for a young black man is an important thing, to see diversity, to experience it. That's my opinion about if I told some young black woman who had a child and didn't have a husband and said, where are you going to raise your kids? We have this much money. I might recommend you go somewhere in Brooklyn where there's all kinds of cultural elements and all kinds of inspiration, because that's really what the black community, a big part of what some of us need.
So let's kind of pick up on that and shift a little bit to talking about what would it take to kind of use culture, right, to shift the perception of opportunity, right? The perception of opportunity.
Absolutely.
Young people.
Can I jump in, Ann?
Yeah.
I think that I want to go back to what Lupe was saying about hope and that conversation also that Jordan brought in about young people having no hope. That hope is not grounded, is not just coming from their own mindset and their own spirit. It's grounded in a reality of what's happening to young people. Of
structural discrimination.
Exactly. And, that we can talk about culture, and I appreciate what was being said earlier about the partnerships and supporting the work that's happening on the ground, because I do think that's the key to sustainability. But I also think it's the power of that partnership to engage the state around the real kinds of reforms that we'd like to see. And whether it's an investment in education, whether or not it's an investment in jobs, or what have you, it is, for us to have this conversation, and for us to have this conversation grounded particularly around young men and young men of color, it's about leveraging our ability to shape culture in the service of reimagining young black men as human, fundamentally, and transforming that national will. And I just feel like that trying to connect that to the lack of hopelessness in order to change that state apparatus and push it in the direction is going to require us all coming together around that same imperative.
And let's again kind of turn to kind of solutions. What would you, Jordan, you started us off by saying that media was critical, right, to reaching young people,
Definitely.
right? I mean, where have you seen it kind of really where have you seen maybe some of the other young people in your community really kind of blossom, right, because of kind of broader access to reimagining their lives through using media to connect? I mean, tell us more about that.
I see how people, like, once they watch TV or they listen to music, they want to be like a hip-hop artist or like a dancer, but they don't understand that hard work and how choreography pays off. Jay-Z didn't become the best rapper he is because he just say, yo, flow, schmo. No, he read the dictionary. He actually put in hard work, and I don't think my peers understand that hard work pays off in the end. And my mom always told me, to whom much is given, much is expected. So I feel like life its own was enough for me. So now I have to make something of my life. So I feel like if people don't understand that, then that's why I'm here, to make my fellows, to show them. Right.
Absolutely.
Good stuff, yeah.
Can I add on to that?
Yeah.
I found it fascinating I was doing some research not too long ago, and you were speaking of the 40 acres and the mule and even socialism and things like that. When the slaves were freed in the late 1800s, black people were 0.5% of the nation's income. Today, black people are 0.5% of the nation's income.
Wow.
So, and even if you take economics out of it, if you look in this room right now, as I'm looking around, looking at everybody, you speak of the solution. Ultimately, I think there's a plague in our community of insecurity. You can look, there's even people in here right now, some people in here, they kind of tuck low. They not really, they might be nodding off a little bit because, and I was that kid. I was that kid that used to sit in the back, be trying to think of the next joke to make some fun of somebody else's clothes because I had on hand-me-downs. So I felt like if I was talking about somebody else, at least then the light was off for me. It's insecurity. A lot of us in here, the majority of us didn't grow up with fathers. So we don't really know who to look to or who to be like. So the first dude with his chest poked out, that's who I want to be like. I don't know how he got his money, but I want to stand tall like he stood tall. And it's been that way for generations. And the reason why you have us up here is because someone instilled security in us. Someone instilled self-esteem in us. I don't know who it was. I don't know who taught this young man how to walk up to someone and introduce himself and say who I am. But we need more people like that to teach us all that. Because otherwise we just going to be insecure because it's been instilled in us for so many generations that we are lesser than. It may sound cliche that it takes a village to raise a child, but we need to enlighten, and that's what we can use entertainment for. That's what we need to do. We can talk about the economics of it, we could talk about the social status, but we know what power we have, and I believe that's the beauty of hip hop. That's what we've done. We've created figures like Jay-Z to see, wow, look at all the obstacles he overcame. We created people like Will Smith to where people can call him corny, but he's still gonna stand tall and be the biggest movie star in the world. And take Barack Obama, people, that's self-esteem, that's dignity. And we need to find that dignity again because there's leaders all in this room. They just need to be told that they're leaders.
Yeah.
There was I got a book club called The Readers, and the last book we read was Revolutionary Suicide, the memoirs of Huey P. Newton.
Yeah.
And Huey P. Newton, I was filling them all the way up to about page 290 or something like that. No, but what he said was that the heroes are not in Hollywood. Hollywood makes lies. Hollywood is about creating false things, right? Real change occurs with the people. He didn't believe in hero worship, and I'll just run another guy who didn't believe in hero worship either. His name was Albert Einstein. He didn't believe in hero worship. He didn't believe that we should look to another person of their status and their how big they are, massive they are, culturally, monetarily, what have you. Because that's the flaw, that's the fault, that's the immediate getting caught up in the real definition of hegemony, which is to oppress yourself, right? To chase the dreams. Those are dreams, those are fantasies. I was always wanted to have an experiment where I wanted the radio to cut off for 2 weeks. And I wanted the televisions to cut off for 2 weeks, right? I wanted all of those kind of false, you know what I'm saying? Just overdone, oversaturated, popular, just grossly vulgar, disturbing, what have you, images just shut off for like 2 weeks, right? So no Jay-Z's, no Lupes, no Rick Rosses, no Carrie Hilsons, no none of that, And just see how society reacts to that. See how the youth react to that, to not having to look for your role models, your real role models, to become your own role model, and stop living your life vicariously through someone else, right? Who's really acting, right? So that's not even their real life. The Jay-Z you see isn't the real Jay-Z. That's not him.
But you take your role so serious. We all appreciate that. We would love that young people could look inside for their mentor. We know that God's sitting inside each one of us and young people, and we know it's written in every scripture over and over, but you take your role seriously. And you inspire people because you're present. You stand up and say shit that Cornel West and I were talking 2 days ago, and you said something, you know what you said. He said, would get you in a lot of trouble, but you just said it anyway, right? Right? And you thought it was something that black people needed to hear, right? And there's young people like you who need, you can't make each person be a leader, but each one that you can inspire. Your success makes someone else say, I ain't got to play the cheap seats. That's important.
Yeah.
Your success shows the people in your community something. You making a Halo Award and getting the celebrities. They do so much good work, and no one knows that every rapper got a charity. Every congressman ain't got a charity, but every rapper got a charity.
That's right. You need to write that letter.
From Snoop's football, we've written the Snoop's football league they got shit Chingy for Change. I mean, they got everybody, Ludacris Foundation, Sean Carter Foundation, everybody, and they're all doing work. And they all, sometimes what Alicia Keys is doing today, we're trying to support with her work in Africa, and all of the work that they're doing. It's not being exposed, it's true, but they're doing the work. And as they do the work, and if it is transferred, if it's in their music, if it can come in their music because it's cultural. Because they're doing it despite it ain't cultural. They rap about dirt, some do, and then go back to their community and build a community center. They rap about what's selling. They got one foot stuck in the pop world, and if they pull it out, they might not be hot. There's dirt in the world, but not so much in their hearts. So we got to really, we can't always, and it bothers me to constantly, use the artists, the reflections, and the mirrors as the culprits.
But
But it's inspiring to see when they do out loud what he can do.
my concern, and for me it's all experimental, it's all about just posing questions and just throwing things out there. You can create the hardware, right? So you create the community center, you create the community center, you create this physical place, right? But it needs something to run on, you know what I'm saying? So you have kids who are coming to play at the basketball center that such and such rapper built, right? But at the same time, too, he's getting all his education from the rapper as well. So he's playing basketball with crack in his shoes. So it's that kind of hypocritical duality that exists. Where it's like, okay, we built this, right? We built all this, but we're still feeding mentally. We're still giving you the poison, But hey, it's cool because we're giving you this, but it's the same thing that TV does, the same thing that corporations do. It's like, yo, we gave you this, but it's like we're taking all of that.
And I think that goes,
No, I'm not. Thank you. But you see what I'm saying? I just threw that out there as just kind of like a, it's with I hate taking the lesser evils, like lesser evils is like, why are we picking between evils? Why are we still standing between evil? And we have to choose between the lesser evils, and I just want to put that out there.
But yeah, to your point, absolutely. I think going back to what I was saying again about self-esteem and insecurity, it's like that's what we look up to, and to go back to the root of it, it's morals, it's family values. And I mean, we are strong people. We got some of the strongest values, but because, it's our mamas. You know what I mean? Don't talk about a black man mama. You know what I mean? But it's taking that and embracing that and recognizing the pride in that, because we're prideful, and society knows that. Society has known that from the beginning. They know, you think about Monopoly, right? You think about the game Monopoly. Imagine you trying to win the game of Monopoly if they took your $1,500 away at the beginning. That's how we started. We didn't have our $1,500. And look where we are today. Imagine if we would have got our $1,500 at the beginning of Monopoly. You know what I mean? So, imagine if we would have got our 40 acres.
Yeah.
So to this day, it's those things we need to recondition in a sense to where it's about values. It's about saying, you are kings. You are leaders.
Yeah.
We don't hear that enough. You know what I mean? And it's about bringing that back family-wise.
Okay, let's open it up. This is like so rich, but we really want to invite in, these leaders out here. So I think we're going to have a couple of folks walking around with mics to take your questions, and we also have some folks online who are going to have a chance to send in some questions. So, while we're waiting to get that kind of started, let me just sort of throw out a question that any of you can jump in on, which is, let's begin to really imagine that everybody in this room really commits to kind of change, right, for the next. Well, what would it look like? Like, what would be different in 5 years and 10 years if everybody committed to kind of shifting perceptions, shifting images, so that every kid in this audience and out there, right, could dream the biggest dreams?
I think it's happening. I mean, the fact, we don't know the effect yet, but watch the effect that there's a person in the White House that looks like us. Watch what's that, my little brothers, I used to say I want to be president. I ain't believe it. But my little brothers say that now. You know, my child will be able to say that and really believe it because it's been done.
Absolutely.
So I think it's gonna happen. It's happening. We just gotta embrace it.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to jump in on that while we're waiting for some questions?
I think that once everybody understands that they can be a leader, and once everybody understands that they have what it takes to do greatness, we won't just have 6 or 7 people up here. We'll have everybody up here talking about how they feel and how they understand the world.
Wonderful.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we could go all day about what the symptoms or the examples of what we don't do. You know, it is true. The other day I was in Miami. I was at an exclusive hotel, and there were like 5 black guys running the hotel's cabanas. And they was running they was running. And I was like, I told the guy, it was funny, I told him I want some green juice with some cilantro and apple. Broccoli, spinach, a lot of parsley, and some kale. And then I want you to put, this man started running. He went up to the top of the hotel, found this shit, had the juicer that was in the basement, and brought me a pitcher of green juice. And I knew damn well he had an accent. You know, this is our sad reality. Am I wrong? Did I know did I know before he opened his mouth? It's a sad reality. We're not good servants. Leaders are servants. The leaders that are here are servants of their community. They love them,
Absolutely.
but our young people have lost, the will to serve. And they don't know that hard work is prayer. And they don't know that these spiritual teachings that are taught in every religion, by every prophet, and by their mother, in many cases their father's gone, their mama was a crackhead. This problem we've had has weighed on our next generation. But we don't have the servants in our young people that can be the leaders. And we have to create them, it's true. And I don't want to talk too much. I didn't want to be one of the people talking about our problem, but that, I knew that boy was something. Grenada somewhere. He wasn't no black kid from Brooklyn. That's sad. It's sad.
Okay, let's go with that. Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Cass Hayden. I'm from Howell.
All
I'd like
right.
to ask a question. After listening to the panelists speak about the problem and the solution, hope that we have. Little questioning, thinking here, because this economy is busted. We just had the chairman of the Fed say that no jobs are coming back in the next 4 or 5 years. Okay, now that's the guy that runs the Federal Reserve. Whether he's right or wrong, I'll leave that up to you. But the question I'm going to ask is, how many of you have heard of Michelle Alexander? Who did the book
Absolutely.
called The New Jim Crow?
Beautiful book.
How many of you up there have read that? How many in the audience have read that book?
Cornell West, he's like, yeah, you gotta read this book.
New
Jim Crow, yeah.
We want to talk about the problem of black youth. We got more black males under the control of the criminal justice system in America now than we had in slavery in 1850. That was 10 years before the Civil War. Now this conversation that we have here about the future and youth and how we're going to get ourselves together, I think that everybody on that panel, since you obviously take a position of spokesperson and some kind of leadership, need to buy that book. You need to read it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what do we got next? For me to see.
My mentor Cornel West, he told me to get that book 4 times.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna go get it. As a matter of fact, I got my Nook right over there. I'm gonna download it as soon as I walk off stage. Most
Yeah, here we go. A question over here.
Hey guys, my name is Jody, and my question is
Speak a little up, yeah.
Hey, my name is Jody and Zane. I live in Harlem, not too far away. I work with Teach for America. I also work with Women in Our Society, or CGMONA. My question is for you, Nick, in particular. You gave that quote that was really startling, right? About when we were released as slaves, when we were contributing 0.5%. And today we're still at 0.5%. I would love to know where that source was.
I got it out of a book that I actually been doing research on. It's called The Dark Secrets of America. I can find the author for you as soon as I get off the stage. Absolutely.
Great.
We have another question on the floor. If you can please keep your questions and comments brief as possible. Thank you.
I'm Professor Beverly Anderson. I teach at BMCC. And I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I think that one of the problems that we have now is that I don't think the grown-ups are really being grown-ups anymore. I think it's really important that grown-ups provide leadership
How you doing?
that they tell young people that you're just as good as anybody else and that you can do whatever you want to do. I grew up under segregation, and all of my black teachers told me, you're just as good as anybody. And that's where the grown-ups have fallen off the path.
The men's
I'm
room?
telling our young people, you're just as good as anybody, you can do whatever you want. And so in our small way, every individual grown-up here has to take responsibility. You've got to instill hope again. The world is so much more open now to you guys than it was when I grew up in the South and under segregation, all black schools. You've got all kinds of opportunities. You can do it. And the grown-ups have to help you believe that you can do it. And that's what I try to do every day.
Yeah.
Good evening. First, I just want to say thank you for being here. My name is Keisha James, and I work for an organization called Partners for Developing Futures. And what we do is we invest in people of color with our charter school. And I really just wanted to, I have a question, but I want to go back to the comment that youth are hopeless. And since I work in education, I just really have to say that it's not the youth that are hopeless, it's the adults that have given up on the youth.
Yeah.
And so, I'm reminded of the teacher and the times when I taught, and the students that they told me were special needs, but because I had high expectations for my students, they rose above what others said they couldn't do. And so now working in an organization where we invest in people of color from start charter school, and most recently the movie Waiting for Superman came out, and I said, well, why are we waiting for Superman when we should be waiting for ourselves? And so that goes back to when I go out and
I will make it a
for
point to,
Blacks and Latinos to
as
invest
soon as I get
in
home tonight now,
education.
pick up my
I
computer.
guess my
I'll use
question
that little
really
thing.
is, it is
Started
much
ringing.
easier for me to go to wealthy
call
white
it,
people, and they understand the need for education. But why is it that in our community,
man.
we don't hear anyone talking about the need
man,
for
now
quality
that-
education to really go against all the things that we're talking about really boils down to education.
You are
And so
here.
I guess the question
Yeah.
for now is, where do you see the role that
You're in
your
Brooklyn.
celebrity or your fame
Yeah, all
has
right.
given you to provide? And it's not always financial.
Yeah.
You can do more than financial. So
But
what do you
I'll
think,
send
and how
you
do you go about getting more activity involved in education around this issue?
Okay. The statement about the youth being hopeless is what the youth said. You know, these were the kids who were shooting people. You know, it's like, why are you shooting people? You know, it's like, because life doesn't mean anything. You know, so that isn't like me, like, yo, you know, it's like kids who kill each other said that, right? As far as like education, I grew up on the west side of Chicago. I went to a school called Crown Community Academy. Crown Community Academy, the neighborhood that it's in, is 98% impoverished. So the kids, some of the kids who go to the school only go to school for lunch, right? To the point where one of the programs in the school was to offer not just 2 meals a day, but 3 meals a day, right? So they got a full course of what have you, and education was just kind of like, you know, the real issue was going on. So there's cracks in the system. There's been cracks in the system. There's always been disparity in education amongst whites and blacks and Latinos, right? And it's all the deciding factor has always been either the neighborhood you lived in, which is based on your economic status and what you could afford, and the quality of the education and the teachers going to there because they want to make the fatter paychecks and what have you, right? So it's still just kind of, and I saw Waiting for Superman, and I was inspired, and I cried at the end when he got into school and everything. right? But it still has to be an education outside of the education system, right? We put so much faith in like somebody else to teach us or somebody else to teach our kids, when it's like, yo, there's so much out there. There's so many libraries, right, where the books are free, right? And there's no tuition, you know, where you can go and take your child, you know, or take a group of children and read to them. Not even, and I'm not talking about Cat in the Hat. I'm talking about whip out Play-Doh on a kid. Challenge them. You know, they bring you the A, B's, and C's and the 1, 2, 3s when they come home, right? You should be teaching your son or daughter your son or daughter algebra, or challenging them with trigonometry, because I bet you it's some 10-year-old kid in Japan, right, who's killing them right now, right? But it's all on us, right? It's all on. We have to understand that education isn't just in a school, right? Education is an entire a lifelong process, which everybody is involved in, and everybody's a teacher. You see a kid on the train, hit him with a question real quick, like, yo, my man, who invented macaroni? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like we have to challenge our youth. We have to challenge ourselves, because some of us ain't as smart as we think we are either.
And to even further that point into what you were saying, a lot of times, the brother right there made a fascinating point as well, to where right now these young people don't see education as the key. They don't know that's what's going to get them out. They thinking about how are they going to get their next meal. They thinking about how they going to get their little brother dressed every day because he doesn't have any clothes. They thinking about can they go find their mom because she roaming the streets. Those other kids don't have to worry about that.
All these components are connected. Education is probably, it is good. 3 meals. I mean, that's what they do. And you give you somewhere nicer to go to school and home, and you put a bomb on your back. I mean, you got to really, that's what we have to do. We have to improve our education system, there's no question. But about the hopelessness, I mean, I adopted a kid, he was 15, he had been shot, his man had been shot, he'd been shot 4 more times. All his friends are dead. He's just a Brooklyn kid. All his friends are dead. He's in school because I told him I loved him. He's in college now. But when I found him at 15, he had no chance. His man who got shot, when he got shot, when I met them, and they were artists, is dead. And everybody around him is dead. And nobody in his family finished high school, but he's in college, just because someone told me I love him. But there's a lot of components to building, to rebuilding this community. But I applaud you for saying about education, because it is a critical component.
Let's get another question up here.
Before, I want to rewind it back to what Nick said. And I think one of the problems in the African American community is babies having babies. I feel that a lot of my peers, a lot of teens are having babies, therefore there is no big authority. There is no one at home who can tell you right from wrong, because they're still doing the same different things that are not correct. Sorry. But I feel that if we continue to have this type of society that we have, then it's going to be a while till we fix it.
Okay. You got another question queued up?
My name is Steve Tyson, and I'm currently a college advisor here at Harlem Children's Home, and I actually used to work for you, Mr. Simmons, at Global Grind. But my question is, as an aspiring MC and working with a lot of the youth here in Harlem, a lot of the message I try to convey is, social uplift, education, positivity, spirituality, and such. And it resonates with a lot of the youth here. But at the same time, even though I'm going out performing, there are many other students who are performing, like-mindedly as well. There's not as much of that message being seen from the mainstream or to the community, even though the community is kind of feeling that as well. So I didn't know if any of you in your individual respective circles know of or have even heard of collectively, any environment or like-minded folks within the established, mainstream entertainment circles and fields, trying to bring that messages of uplift the community to the people, as opposed to the people consistently clamoring for those who are in that position to express it.
I think that's why we're here tonight. I mean, to be a part of the community, and honestly, just being a young person, I feel like these are my peers. And to even be in a room with people that have inspired me. I mean, this man sitting next to me, there would be no Nick Cannon if it wasn't for Russell Simmons. And I'm from from Andre Harrell sitting in the front row to Mr. Hudlin and the films that he made. Those are the things that when I was sitting, you know, in the projects, wishing I could be a part of something, having no connection to the industry, just looking at the examples that they made, that they created, that these were black businessmen running companies, creating content, making film. That was enough for me to see, to say, I can do that. So even if you don't know of an organization or you haven't had the intimate connection with, oh, I know Russell, or that, allow those things to inspire you. Allow those leaders. You know, my father would always say, or my grandfather would actually always say, eat the meat and spit out the bones. And when you do that, you're gonna find a leader in someone in your community. And try to figure out how to separate that, because like, there was no community center for me to go to. There was nothing, but it was these things that inspired me, said, I wanna do that, I wanna be that made me get up out my seat and go to Hollywood, come to New York on my own to kind of figure it out. So you gotta, inspiration is around us, you just gotta find it.
My name is Andre Harrell. I want to answer or speak to the question about art, culture, and how we put it together and we manifest something positive. I think it's very important for there to be a dialogue between people who do the work on the ground, to people who are in the industry, in the music business, in the film business, in the television business. Because once we're made aware of the statistics that 1 out of 3 kids will end up in jail, that 52% and 53% black males drop out of high school. Once we are made aware of the statistics, that dialogue turns into art. Once the artists start to understand that these problems are real, then they take on responsibilities and try to change things and try to put it into the universe that this needs to stop. And then other people get involved and they try to put together conferences. And other people get involved and try to create laws to get rid of some of these things. I think the way that art works best in terms of politics is because we have a dialogue with people on the ground, and then art can then put it in the universe, and then we can all be inspired and react to change.
Yeah. Who's up?
Well,
Can't see. Who's up?
You have a question?
We already heard the student on the side, right there.
Great.
My question is, I was always told, especially that short and sweet, nobody wants to see a 2-page resume or a 5-page college essay. But my question is, I asked somebody, they said, we're in a recession, right? So I said, out of humor, why not just make more money? And they answered me with a serious question. They said, because then money would be valueless. So I want to ask you guys, how would you feel if everyone was a celebrity? If we just created more and more and more? Because what I was told is if everyone was a celebrity, then we would all have no reason to exist because it just wouldn't matter.
yeah. I mean, and our money is valueless. Even right now, it's a fiat currency. There's no gold behind it. So just to answer the serious question, the money that you have right now in your pocket, the only reason it has value is because you impart value onto it. And everybody recognizes it as a medium of exchange, but there's no real hard currency that sits behind backing up your dollars in your pocket right now. So right now, the value that the money in your pocket has is because you magically impart value onto it. So that's the one.
Yeah.
But if everybody was you're right, if everybody was a celebrity, it's the same thing. And then you also have to, since we use that money example, do celebrities really have value, or is it the value that you put on them?
Come on now.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, my man be standing up
He
for a
just standing
minute.
like he just looked like a mannequin. Man. Give that man. Get that man.
In the brown shirt.
Oh. The man with the hand like that. He look.
Thank you for letting me have a part in this. Good evening, family. Aisha Sacred, founder of Street Corner Resources. One, I want to just say that the hopelessness that we see in young people is not totally hopelessness, and it just requires us reaching beyond ourselves and just taking, even if everybody in this room, every adult, took in the workplace, the young man that you see on the way to work, the one that you see at the subway, the one that you see beginning to act out and turn into somebody that becomes unrecognizable, that if we are watching Bubba go bad, we are just as bad as Bubba going bad. The other thing that I want to say is that we have to call into account those who have responsibility. So in the record industry, if they are making the music that is causing the thinking, that is causing the triggers to be pulled, the hope to be gone, that we have to call them out on that and stop buying that music. And I'm just sorry, that's just the reality. The good will not outweigh the bad if we have young people dying on our streets because music is sending messages for young people to pull triggers. And then lastly, when we look at programs who are doing the grassroots work, and Brother Simmons, I thank you for saying that because Street Corner Resources is one, and we use small things to make big change in young people. Inspire to get them to aspire. And one is the use of radio. And our programs need funding, and we need to reach the bigger organizations who are doing well, we need to reach to the smaller organizations and pull them along so that we make sure that we have the people who have the enthusiasm to do this work and to stay grounded with these young people who have the touch and the hand on these young people to continue to make the movement that is necessary in our community to keep our young people engaged and keep their lives enhanced and keep them away from gun and gang violence and poverty and hopelessness.
Sister, I want to thank you for what I want to thank you for what you do. But I got to say to you, you know, it is true the thing he said about the mirror, about the companies, about, you know, it's the artists. The poets say things that we don't like often. They said, when they did say fuck the police, it was good. We had a whole dialogue about police as occupying forces. There was a lot of work done. A lot of stuff came to light. It was a reality that people didn't want to hear, but actually it was a reflection of a reality that had been ignored. The gang rap got real hot. For a long time, it was a hot gang rap. But it's cold now. It's ice cold. You know, I tried to inspire. I had a group back then, South Central Cartel. I tried to say, could you explain this to me? Because I remember I lived in LA and they couldn't come. They had T-shirts and their hair, and they couldn't come to Beverly Hills. They were scared to drive to Beverly. No guns, no nothing. You're just scared. The police gonna throw them on the floor in Beverly Hills. It's impossible. They had no way out in their mind. So I had that group. I tried to mentor that group. They were on my label. At the end of the day, there's no more gang rapes. But the murders in LA are worse. The gangs are still there. So the reflection of our problems are not, you know, when poetry comes and when it stands up and it's in our face, it doesn't mean that it just got here. It doesn't mean that we didn't have all these other negative influences. I just want to say that again because it is too often, I think, that we blame the poets for the work that they're, and I just want to say that because they still got gangs. And that's bad or worse than at the height of those songs.
Right.
We just don't talk about it.
I mean, they got a movie called Mean Streets about Irish gangs. I don't see a bunch of Irish people, you know what I mean? Like, it's being the energy that I don't think that's the source of the problem. And I don't think we need to blame that as being the source of the problem because entertainers are just reporters.
But as individuals, we can, as individuals, you know, everybody, you can't make nobody do nothing. You know, these entrepreneurial spirits are out here doing what they want to do. They got to sleep with themselves. You know, each individual who can be like Lupe can have some courage and stand up. And every time you can mentor someone, not to destroy their art, but to make their art sharper, you know, more inspiring, more insightful. When you can do that, and you don't, then, but you should. But I can't fault those around me who don't. You know, that's just my opinion.
Who got next? Good. That was the last one.
Hi, my name is Karen, and I'm from Australia. I work with the American Human Development Project at Research Council. And so we have a couple more statistics, I guess, that I think will be of interest to you, such as African American life expectancy for men in this country is 70.7 years. The average life expectancy for all Americans in this country is 78.6 years. So I'm interested in bringing this a little bit more back to the topic of what needs to be done. So we've talked about socialism, we've talked about do now in this moment and to improve life for Americans?
I think that this is just the beginning of a conversation, and it's a conversation that's been going on for decades, if not centuries, particularly in our community. But I think there's a moment that's happening right now that we're trying to capture, and I think that we can all feel. There's a moment of a big cultural intersection with, we have a black man in the White House, but we still have 1 in 3 young black boys facing prison. And as Andre pointed out, the dropout rates, the unemployment rates are even bigger. This is one piece of a conversation, and I think as Anne tried to open up the conversation around culture shifting before politics, was kind of throwing out the gauntlet to the culture makers on this panel, the culture makers in the room, that we need a national imperative and a national conversation engaging in the culture and the conversation that we can all have about this, so that we can begin to transform the national will to solve these problems. The foundations in the room are not going to solve the problems. The individual wealthy people in the room are not going to solve these problems. It's going to require a commitment of all of us to reach that tipping point to change and improve the lives of young black men, or all of our communities. And I can't let this go, being a good political scientist, without saying that that change happens with an engagement with the state. And that there is a lot that we need to do to transform our own communities from inside, but there are a lot of choices that the folks that govern us make on a daily basis that have to do with investments in our own communities. And if we're not at that table having that conversation, or at least using culture to inspire other people to be thinking about the investments that they're making, that we want to see in other areas, whether it's climate change or whatever, we have to be in that conversation. Are we going to support bonuses on Wall Street, or are we going to support bonuses, to our teachers who are doing the hard work of helping us raise our kids? Those are real choices that I think culture can inform, and that's the kind of engagement that we need to begin.
Culture can help the politicians. Culture can re-elect the Detroit mayor, hip-hop mayor. He went to jail. We helped elect and change the climate, even from a race standpoint, hip-hop, by engaging people in different cultures in one cultural phenomena, to put the president in the White House. We can do all that with culture. But like when the president says, he sounded like he thought he was a preacher when he said and I love the president, but when he said, stand up, take care of your family. Stand up and march to the program on the corner that I put there. There are too many programs, unfunded, underfunded, there are too many crisis situations around this country that the government has not recognized, and then we do cry out. There is a crisis with black men in this country. We are murdering each other. 40 people get shot in a weekend in Chicago. It don't make the news. So it's for Eric Holder. He's, wave at us. It's for not the black president. It's for all the people that represent us. And that's the message. It's the culture, not the purveyors of culture. So we have this dialogue. We want to work. I'm going to go back on the road and work for all of the Democrats, and I'm going to do all the shit I've been doing. But on real talk, what are the fucking Democrats going to? Don't tell me to stand up and take care of my wife. Give me a fucking program. And I think that's been the problem. A lot of the politicians love my ass, but they do shit for the people that I love. And that's really an issue, and it's become more of an issue. So whether it's prison reform, we know what happens with the drug addicts that come home and destroy our communities. We promised to do so much shit for prison reform. For the drug laws, we slow to move on a lot of the shit. George Bush did every fucking thing he promised me, and more. and we kind of got slow on many, many issues, right? Didn't he?
What did he promise?
To be a
All the
gangster.
shit we didn't want to see happen, he did it all. Didn't he? So my point I'm making is that our politicians, that we see a crisis when black men killing each other, that's a crisis. Don't be afraid to address it. And I think that's a real issue with me, and when it comes to culture helping to uplift, because it seems to me that there's always a politician sitting in front of me, and I just feel disheartened by the like, that's why I just feel disheartened. Everybody goes on the road and works their ass off, and people get in office in all the districts and all the few no senators, but the few black politicians and progressive politicians who promise they really they didn't deliver. And I'm not saying it because I know it's a difficult climate. I know it's not a support system, but a lot of stuff could have happened. We had that Senate next. We had some time. We had a few minutes to do some work for the black community, for the crisis situation.
Well, just to throw some controversy in there, which is what I like to always do.
Good for you.
All the presidents in Africa are black.
What are you saying?
No, I'm not saying black president.
All the presidents in Africa are black.
All right.
There's no place worse off. I don't care where you go. Just to eliminate the racial kind of mythology of it. To just snatch that soul up out of you, which is something that I'd put it on the table. I didn't vote because I don't believe in the system. You could put a blue man up there and I'll still want to vote. But just to throw that out there, saying that all the presidents in Africa are black, eliminate the myth of the golden era of the black hood. You know what I'm saying? That it's like, oh, just because we're black, we deserve this, or we're black, so this should change just off chance, and we're black, and it's all our problems. The people who destroyed Africa were not black. That's the other part.
Who destroyed?
Right, the people who destroyed Africa, right, to make those black presidents useless and futile and politically innate and what have you.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So you have to be very careful when you look at your leadership and your political leadership as the instruments to change. Change comes from the people.
But the people's work, though, you're right. The people's work, the people, what they work for, what kind of movement we spend time creating. To spend time creating, a voters. I mean, we didn't vote this time, but to get people to vote. It seems like not only the White House, but they like to see us on the surface. And I'd say this to the black community, but all progressive voters and all progressive people who want to promote freedom for everybody and change the way the system works. It really is. There's something more. The crisis. There is something more important, and that is the culture itself, not the purveyors of culture. And we gotta get to work and support the people, the activists in these communities that are doing the work but have no resources.
That's a great note to end on, Russell. We got to wrap it up. We could sit here and talk all night. This is so lively. I, for one, have got more hope than I had when I walked in the door. I hope you all too, because of the energy and the enthusiasm of the panelists and also all of you. So